Let's take a look at a sample project scope statement. This project scope statement is for a family camping trip for 4, 2 adults and 2 teenagers. So right away we know what the project is. Next we want to know by when it's going to happen. And in this case it's going to happen on March 8th of 2018. That's when they're going camping. And then the how much and this one says not to exceed $300. So their camping trip's not going to cost them more than $300. So right away we know with a very important section on the project scope statement, the what, the by when, and the how much. The next section is that deliverables section. Again, these are statements of the outputs that happened during the project. In this case, it's a camping trip, so a reserved campsite at Yellowstone National Park, a purchased tent appropriate for 4 people, a packed suitcase. So you can kind of see what we're doing here. These are what outputs that are expected to happen during the project. So natural, again, we don't want them to be things we have to make up. And we definitely don't want to have a how-to list. So we don't want it to say, reserve the campsite, pack the suitcase, purchase the tent. We don't want that. We want outputs. So we're thinking of what's coming out of the project. So those are the deliverables. The next section is the milestones. And again, that can mirror the deliverables somewhat. So when is the campsite going to be reserved? Well, the campsite will be reserved by March 1st. When is the tent going to be purchased? The tent's going to be purchased by March 3rd. So a date certain is so important in the milestones. We need to know when it's going to happen. Now, it is possible to say within 2 weeks of starting the project. You can do milestones that way, but it's more clear if you have dates in there. Now, are these dates absolutely 100% right? We don't know because it's early in the project. So we used an educated guess to pick these dates, but we're not really sure that those are the right dates yet. As we learn more about the project, we'll know more about everything and we'll know more about the dates. But at this point, these are what we think are actually going to happen. The next section is the technical requirements. We talked about this as being a tougher section to think of. Now again, on all of these sections, I like to have a minimum of 5. More if you can have it, but minimum of 5. And in this case, the campsite must be large enough to house a tent for 4 people, a car, bicycle, fire ring, and miscellaneous camping supplies. That's something we may not know ourselves, so we have to maybe look up the information or get someone who's more educated in that area to help us out with that. The tent must meet all fire standards required for tent camping in a national park. I don't know the requirements for fire standards, but somebody does, and so I'm going to look for that information as a technical requirement. So you can kind of see how this works in whatever project you're doing. What will we have to look to someone else to answer questions about our project? That's kind of what we're thinking of there. The next section is the limits and exclusions. Only family members will be allowed on this camping trip. That's a limit. We're limiting it to family members. The camping trip will last no longer than 4 days and 3 nights. We're limiting it to time. All family members will be cooking and cleaning for meals. So there's a limit. The camping trip cost will be limited to $300. So we can do limits on costs in here. We don't want to have that be our focus because we've got other documents later on, and we already specified a cost earlier, so we don't want to repeat that too many times, but we can include it here. And then no electronic devices will be allowed on this camping trip. So there's an exclusion. You can't take your video game player or anything on the trip. We want to be one with nature. The last section then is the customer review. And in this case, it's mom and dad. It could be someone who is overseeing the project. That's really what we want there. So that is a sample of a preliminary scope statement for our project. I want to take a look now at the rubric. So you'll find this rubric for grading this project in the talent section, and it specifies how you will be graded on your individual preliminary scope statement. Going down through each one of the sections here, it's very important to look at these ahead of time because I want you to be proficient and maybe even going over and extending your quality to be exceptional quality. And I don't think you can really do that if you're not aware of how you're going to be graded. So do take a look at these rubrics. They are useful. What you'll want to be is over on the right side in the exceptional clarity. So I always grade on completeness and clarity. So being having answered the question is very important, and how clear are you in answering that question? So in this case, is that project objective? Is it exceptionally clear? Do you say in that camping one, did you just write camping trip? Or did you put a family camping trip for 4, 2 adults and 2 children? That is exceptionally clear. Okay, so writing the exceptionally clear section really tells us everything we need to know. So taking a look down here, the project objectives, I want you to have more than 5 to be exceptional. The good clarity is what we're always striving for. That is acceptable. But if we want to go beyond that, we want more than 5 deliverables. The deliverables are formatted in 1 to 3 word bullet points. So we're not talking on and on and on and on. We want it to be in a certain format. The milestones, exceptionally well described list of limits. We again want more than 5, and so on. So you can take a look at that, the rubric for grading that. Please do take a look at that so that when you submit your work, it follows this rubric and hopefully will fit every one of the sections into the exceptional clarity. If you have questions, please feel free to email me about anything in this preliminary scope statement, and I'm happy to answer questions for you so we can get this started off right away on a good foot.